That song be jamming. I love it.
What's up? What's up,
What's
everyone?
happening?
Hello, hello. Welcome in,
Yeah.
everybody. How you guys doing?
Happy Monday. Happy Monday. So welcome everyone to this spooky October demystifying series. I'm Dustin Valkema. I am on this glorious screen with Ian Robinson and the one and only Rodolfo Silva. Really? Come on, hey, crowd. All right, well, we don't have a crowd. I might need
What's up?
So in the background, we have Kyle Johnstone, the amazing one and only, and Dr. Sassy is going to be doing his thing as normal with creating timestamps and so on. So I'm super excited for this month. We have quite a bit going on with ZBrush for the first 2 weeks. And then in the third week, we are going to be switching off to myself, diving into some Redshift in week 3 and week 4. So yeah, you get to see how the whole scene's put together, and then you get to hear me ramble about the lighting and camera composition, all of that cool stuff in Redshift a bit later. So general housekeeping, let's switch to my screen.
Let's do it. Let's switch.
1, 2, 3, go. There it is. All right. So as always, we have to do our normal housekeeping. Maxon.net. You can find the events. And so that is going to be under news, I believe, and then events here. This will take you to our awesome landing page where we have all of the events and live streams that you can join throughout the month. So you'll see quite a bit here, both in Cinema 4D and Redshift, Adobe Max, all of those live streams that you guys can get into, as well as some awesome ZBrush stuff. So moving on to Cineversity, learning things from kind of all Maxon products. This is a really cool place to get in depth and dive into the software, both technically and creatively throughout the various tutorials and so that we have here. And the free t-shirts. So all you pay for is shipping. So what we'll do is head to the link in the comment section. I think it's that way. That way.
Get some of these beautiful merch here.
Somewhere down there. So Kyle is going to put a cool link in there, as well as the password, which is spooky renders for the month of October. And we can get into all of this goodness. As I said, you only pay shipping for these shirts. So pick one and the balance will be marked at 0 and you'll pay for shipping. That's pretty cool there. Now, next is the Maxon certification. So if you want to be like the cool people that get certified, there's a few of us that are, quite a few of us that are certified. It's a pretty cool process. You can make your way through the ranks of the different certifications that we have here. I actually just had a pretty cool story that was put on Maxon here. You can search through, just type in Dustin Valkema, I'm sure, on maxon.net, and you'll find it. It's a pretty cool certification story about myself. I love it. Certification is awesome, especially as you get to the training side. If you'd like to be a certified trainer in Cinema 4D and the various products that Maxon has to offer, you get opened up to a really cool community of people and access to a lot more behind the scenes than you may even realize. So it's pretty cool. So check out certification. And without further ado, let's go ahead and switch over to Rodolfo so we can start this process. I know there's a lot to teach today in ZBrush, so let's get popping.
Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Rodolfo. I'm gonna do the introductions again in a sense. So I'm a ZBrush live streamer. As some of you in the chat might know, I've seen some familiar names right there. And I'm a 3D environment tech artist, and I'll be showing you guys some of the workflows that I've used to create this scene that you've probably seen in the thumbnail. Just a heads up, I did everything entirely in ZBrush with a little bit of substance, as some of you might know. A little bit of substance plugged into, and this sounds like a little bit of substance. It's not hollow, it has substance to it. So I did a little bit of texturing and substance, but the entire scene itself was made entirely in ZBrush, from the modeling to the sculpting, of course, and some of the texturing and even the rendering, okay? And I know Dustin's going to do the rendering part with the Redshift workflows. and I'm hoping that there's time to at least give a little taste to the audience of non-photoreal rendering in ZBrush, which is also an option. And a lot of people don't use it because they don't know that that's even a thing. BPR isn't just a preview render, not for me at least, to just showcase a lot of the work. Cool.
Oh, yeah.
So is everyone ready? Can I just start doing my thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are all ready to rumble.
Okay,
We're
okay.
here to support you, man. We're here to support you. And also, now that you've mentioned teasing with BPR, you must do that. I've showed BPR a little bit, so now I have to see your workflow in BPR. So
I mean,
Let's go.
it's gonna be a little taste. I saved a lot of presets, so if I don't have time, I can just showcase a few of the features and then just pop in the presets so you guys can see how the completed kind of workflow looks like. And so basically, this is one of the renders I did for the thumbnails, and this is entirely within ZBrush, as you can see. Like if I move the camera around, it goes away, right? So this entire environment, I try to make it as simple as possible, but with the ability to showcase a lot of features inside of ZBrush that a lot of people might not be familiar with. And if you are, it's always fun to just, stick around and rewatch some of these things. I know I've covered in my last ZBrush live stream, I covered IMM brushes, IMM curved and tripart brushes, but I am going to go over that again, especially with the UVs and texturing. I saw a lot of questions related to that as well. So as you can see, this entire environment is not that big. It's not that complex in terms of like the variation in environment are. But it has everything. Basically, it has some, well, I would call it hard surface. It is kind of hard surface. The tombstones are hard surface. So hard surface, a little bit of organic sculpting for the terrain. There's the new slime bridge features that I don't see a lot of people using. I use that for this web. There's a couple of webs here that if I zoom in, you can see, whoops, a daisy. Let me just, I'll tap that.
Daisy, I love it. Yeah, Slime Bridge is super fun to play with now. So yeah, we got to get in more hands.
Yeah, so this was all like slime bridge as well. I'm gonna try to dissect this into two different sections because I know we're kind of a little stretched in terms of time, right? We have a couple of streams, maybe a little bit of the third stream, but that's all. And a lot of these things take a lot more time to do, as you know. But they're still pretty quick by any standards because it's ZBrush, right? But it's still like a lot of these things from the IMM modular brush that I used to call them, because I use them as sort of like you would in games. You would just model one and then use them modularly around the environment. I do that with IMM brushes a lot. And today we're gonna stick to like the basic shapes of the terrain. We're gonna do the big like house and how I use a bunch of features, including live booleans and ZModeler, Gizmo deformers to create this big house, and then the actual shape of the terrain and maybe the framing. And I'm being ambitious. It's 1 hour, so being a bit ambitious. So all right, so to do this house over here, I can break this down.
Just me now? Wait, hold on.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
Hey, I can hear you. I was
hello. Yeah, my screen froze. My stream thing. Oh, there you are. Okay. Did I freeze like during?
Yeah, you froze for me for a second, but you seem to be back now.
Oh, okay. Was it this that did it? This
No.
No. Okay.
No, it seemed like a hiccup in the internet because Dustin also disappeared for a second for me as well.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it was me. I don't know.
All right. I mean,
it was my fault.
I just carried on because I saw my head moving there on the stream, and I was like, okay, I just keep going.
We always drive on. We just move forward, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't know where I froze basically, but as I was saying, I was going to break down each section that I'm going to do today, and we'll start off with this pumpkin house kind of jack-o'-lantern weird Halloween thingy.
No, cool. I'm gonna spotlight a question real quick from Video Mark. Is there going to be a Halloween community challenge? Right now, there's not an official one, but I just sculpted a Venokin, like a Venom Vise pumpkin. Rodolfo's doing a pumpkin. We had a mini jack-o'-lantern challenge at the summit. So I would say unofficially starting in this stream, you guys should be making your own like custom environment or anything jack-o'-lantern, and then you tag us anywhere. You could tag Maxon, you can tag me, Sculpt, you could tag Rodolfo, you could tag Dustin. Just tag us and let us know, and we'll repost, we'll reshare. Like I'll retweet it all myself. So unofficially, there's a pumpkin challenge. Go.
That sounds awesome, actually.
Let's do it. Let's like I just started it now. It's my fault. I started it. Blame me. Let's go.
I mean, it's incredible sometimes how people in the chat just come up with great ideas, and we just push them up, into making it an official thing. The last project I started on ZBrush Live was actually a suggestion from chat, which is awesome. Like, you guys are awesome. All right. As I was saying, the house itself, I'm going to break down this and which features I'm using for every piece, basically. And then I'm going to do a little demo based on that. So this house, as you can see, this is basically a sphere from the Gizmo. This is just a sphere with some masking and pushing these kind of bumps around. Surface noise to make these cracks over here. And I'm going to show noise plugin, not going to do UVs for that in this case. Some live Boolean for these holes, right? Live Booleans are applied here, and especially for the door. This is all ZModeler with some surface noise, and the door itself is actually a ReMesh. The slabs on the door, it's actually a ReMesh, and the framing is an IMM curve brush, right? With a cobblestone rocks, basically. Not rocks. What do you call these? Like bricks? Yeah, bricks. Whatever. So. The terrain, again, just a simple plane with some surface noise, and then using the masking features and surface noise to apply polypane. I'm going to do a little demo here. It's not going to look exactly the same, so I'm going to bring in a cylinder 3D, just make a polymesh 3D. And what I usually do, and I know what Ian's going to say, but let me see if he says it. What I usually do is I ignore all of these primitives, even though there's a bunch of features here that allow you to do some crazy stuff with the primitives that most people are not aware of. So, because it's an old thing, it's been there since the beginning. So if you go over here and you just pick like a cone 3D, I'll actually show the gear. Gear is awesome. Like the gear 3D is awesome for this, and the spiral as well. You can go over here, down here to the initialize button. There's a bunch of settings that you can customize the shape of your section. You can change that shape over there. Do whatever, like crazy shenanigans with your primitive. And only after you hit the make polymesh 3D does this actually become sculptable, okay? So I didn't use this in this instance, because usually when I'm blocking out, I like to have a faster approach to things, and this is more technical. So if I want a very particular shape, I might use this. But if I want just a generic kind of spherical shape, my easier method, let's say, is to just go over here and switch to the Gizmo, go to the gear icon, and use these primitives right here. So if I use the sphere 3D, I have some of those features, some of those initialize features, but they're cones now, basically. So you can just go over here and make like a half sphere, or then change the subdivisions on the fly, whatever. And in this case, I used kind of a half sphere. I think I used something like this. And then I added some more subdivision, but I want to make this a pair number. So if I do like, let's say 16, just for the sake of this demonstration, or maybe 18. My tablet's making me crazy. The sensibility here. So basically so there you go, 18, and then you can change the subdivisions over here as well. So right now, this seems fine to me for the house, maybe just a little bit going up like that. So this would be the base for my house. I want a spherical kind of pumpkin shape in the beginning. And then what I do to make this actually look like, I can even do this actually. So if you press the W key for the Gizmo, or the E or R key, anything that's like move, scale, or rotate, you're in the Gizmo. If you double press that, you're switching between the Gizmo and the cones until you change something. So if you change something in the topology, this goes away, like the cones, right? So once I'm set, I'll just go over here. So now if I start sculpting this, and then if I want to switch this again, I can switch, but it resets my sculpt, right? So again, this is the base for my house. And now what I want to do is I want to switch to my old trusty friend ZModeler. I use this a lot, and a lot of people that watch my streams know this, because I come from a Maya background. So I came from the box modeling old days of just, extruding and inserting edge loops and all of that stuff. but it's just so much easier and faster in ZBrush that nowadays I just use ZModeler for everything. So I use ZModeler to mask in this case because I want to do some transformations to these edges. So I go over here, over an edge, press spacebar and hold, and then I switch to mask. Okay, there you go. So I want to mask edge loop partial because I don't want it to go around because this has a pole over there, so it will go around. I just want to mask every other one of these. So if I just tap every other edge, it's masking. It doesn't look like it because it's a very low poly mesh. And okay, so this is not paired. That's because of my tablet sensibility, but whatever. So the idea right now is that if I want to scale this in, for example, I can either scale it manually, go over here and try to scale it, whatever. Or I can go over this to this blue box, which is the scale in the Gizmo, and press Alt to scale everything except for that. So you're scaling X and Y and not Z in this case. And what you're getting something like this because I screwed up the number of spans over there. So I can just go over here and try to switch this back. So this is how non-destructive this workflow is because you can always just go back and switch this back to whatever it was. I'm going to use the mouse because my tablet's just killing me. So if it's a pair number, come on.
I ZModeler with a mouse.
Yeah.
I switch. I don't use the tablets for ZModeler. I just use a mouse. I find it easier.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. For some things, definitely. But well, for now, I'm just using the tablet. I'm trying to get the most out of this tablet before I sell it. So yeah, so it's like now that the tablet heard me, now it's going to behave properly. So
yeah,
so now it's fun. Yeah, you got to threaten it. It has a conscience of its own, right?
Yeah.
So now it's working because now it's a pair number, right? So if I do this again, go over to this box over here, Alt and drag, I have all of this thing going on. So it's scaling every other span basically. And another cool thing that I use a lot, especially in low poly workflows, and some of the people in the chat that have used the hard surface in ZBrush and ZModeler probably have heard of this, either from Paul or from you on stream. But I do dynamic subdivisions all the time. Like I'm constantly working over here. And what I just did was I pressed the D button, which is the short key for geometry, dynamic subdivision, and this button right here. So what you're doing effectively is like it's not actually subdividing. It's just showing you what it's going to look like after you divide. But you can actually apply this, and it's effectively creating those subdivision levels for you. So what I usually do is I go up in the smooth subdivisions, and another cool thing that I can do now is I can crease these edges with the masking, right? So I can go over here to crease. And oh, it's not actually in crease. It's in masking, I think, right? There's a masking, crease, mask crease, right? Is there a thing here? I thought there was a thing. Well, if it isn't, you just go ZModeler and just apply crease. So this is what I would usually do. Just switch from mask.
I've never creased from a mask before.
Oh, there's a suggestion for a feature then.
That is a suggestion. I like how you snuck that in there. Be like, actually, you know, be a really cool feature. I'm just gonna throw.
It would be really awesome, Like I have this mask. I don't need it to press anything else. Just press mask.
I like how you did that. I was like, I don't think that's a thing.
Sneaky Rodolfo.
You know what? All right, for you, so everyone knows, I'm gonna write that down. Crease from a mask.
There you go. At least in the low poly workflow, that would be a very useful kind of thing. Or again, but you can just use ZModeler and just switch from mask to crease. Edge loop partial again, because I don't want this to go around. Because as you can see, the opposite edge of this is bulging out. Like this one's bulging in, this one's bulging out, so I don't want that. Edge loop partial will only crease up until there, up until it converges to a point and it doesn't really know where I want to keep creasing, basically. So basically I just crease every other one of these meshes, and that's basically my blockout for the pumpkin shape, right? This is a pumpkin shape already. Now I can do something. Well, I'm trying to avoid using my custom submenu, right? My custom palette, because I know people want to see like where these things are. So basically what I usually do is I do a crease and I have like my own like custom menu over here with a hotkey. But so you can just roll back the creasing, and it's not like it's applied like you would in any other DCC software. You can actually change the crease level, like the amount of your crease, on the fly over here. So what I usually do is I do the smooth subdivisions up to 6, and then I subtract 4. And this gives me a fairly smooth surface, but at the same time it's kind of pinching over there. So when I divide, there's going to be a pinch over there. All right, so another cool thing that I want to add, just because this is annoying me, is I want to use ZModeler to go over here and do an inset. And now if I do flat island, it's going to, everything that's like flat, like the normal transitions, going to do an inset. So if I do this over here, no, it's not pinching anymore, right? So it's basically creating those support loops around. And this is the base. There it is, like for my house. Okay. So next, what I did in terms of like just to block out the actual like pumpkin jack-o'-lantern kind of thing. One of the things, whoa, it's not in the correct orientation. So one of the things that I decided was, okay, this has to look like a jack-o'-lantern, right? So it needs eyes. So why not have the windows be its eyes, right? So if I want to have some windows, like really quick, just to see what it looks like, I'm just going to use live booleans. So what I do is I go over here to the subtool, I insert, I don't know, whatever, because as you know from earlier, I use the Gizmo division. So I use the Gizmo primitives for this. So I'm going to switch this back to something like, well, maybe the polycube works. I don't want any subdivisions in this case, not right now. Or maybe I can add a couple over here. There we go, maybe like something like that. And now I can shape this to the shape I want for the window. And a cool thing about live booleans is that it's completely non-destructible until you apply the live booleans, right? So if I don't really like the design of the eyes or the placement or whatever, I don't need to resculpt everything or do whatever you do, because it's non-destructible. So all I have to do for live booleans is actually go over here to these icons, and the second icon is a subtraction. So if I switch this to the second icon, this is using the hierarchy, so everything that's like below, it's subtracting. And now I need to turn on live booleans. So if I turn on live booleans, you can see what's happening. So it's actually cutting in to the geometry, and it's all non-destructive, right? So if I go over here and I want to use this to carve in some eyes or whatever, I want to shape this. So maybe I'll go over here to another feature. This is like, I'm bombarding you with features. It's just another feature is the Gizmo deformers, which we're going to use a lot for, and guys, if I'm going too fast, just tell me. I just want to keep going, you know.
Let's call it out. Let's call it out that this will be recorded. This will be VOD, so this will be recorded for sure. But no, man, bombard away, because I know these go by quick, but ZModeler is so underrated. Like, it's such a powerful tool. So
it is. It's like ZModeler and Gizmo Deformer has been my lifesaver sometimes, like especially for these kind of things. Like, just imagine trying to sculpt this to perfection, to have like a cool, like really crisp hard surface cut into something, but having to sculpt that by hand. It's like, you know, it's going to take you a lot more time, a lot longer than just going over here and just use some low poly workflow. So I want to go over here and use a deformer, which seems kind of an oxymoron, but it's like so one other thing is that, well, this sometimes happens. So let me maybe I'll just use ZModeler here to change the topology. I don't know why this happens, and this is something Ian can pitch in. Sometimes when I go over here and change to the deformer, it resets back, even though I just, you know, created this primitive. And sometimes I'm forced to go over here. Let me turn off live boolean for now, and just change the topology. So it basically resets for me.
Yeah, that's because when you change the topology, it resets the deformers because the deformer wasn't applied. In the same logic in which you make a sculptural change, then use the deformer change, it sets it back. It's remembering the current state in which it existed in, and it's kicking it back because you've made an actual geometry change. So that deformer can no longer function in the same manner because you've deleted vertices. Because remember, with ZBrush, and this is something that's a big call out too, that I really want everyone to understand is that ZBrush functions on the actual vertice itself, not the faces and not the edge loops. It's the vertice that matters. That's what captures all the detail. As soon as you remove a face or an edge, you affect the vertice, and by doing so, you reset the function of that mesh, and that's what you're experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. So anytime I did this and then I would use the deformer, it would reset my cube back to the shape, the original shape. Yeah, because the original deformer with the divisions hadn't kicked in, right? Yep. Okay. So basically, yeah. So I should just go over here, multiple edge loops. So do insert multiple edge loops, and I can pick my edge loop again. I can also say to keep polygroup, and now it's not going to change to polygroup, or I can mask it and just do a slice, whatever. There are like multiple ways to just add edge loops, which is, I love it. So I could use the deformer for this, which is basically, if you're familiar with software like Maya, it's basically the lattice deformer. It works kind of in the same way, but it's cooler because it's just Gizmo dependent, so you can actually switch it around, and it also has like symmetry options that are very, very intuitive. But I'm actually going to use a more simple workflow for this. I'm going to use the taper, and oh, you see what's happening? it's doing that again. So let me just delete this again. Doesn't matter. I'll just add the subdivisions later. So I'm going to use the taper over here. And the taper, I can just go over here and say, all right, I'm going to push this cone. I'm going to make it tapered, basically. And I want to use dynamic subdivision. Let me crease by, actually, I'm going to show you guys what I did. So going over here, crease and crease tolerance, basically the angle in degrees that it's going to crease the edges based on the angle shift between the polygons. So I want to crease that by that angle, maybe lower this a little bit and maybe more. There we go. And dynamic subdivisions, just raise the smooth subdivision, and that's it. And it's going to give me that particular shape that I'm looking for. So maybe something like 4. Okay, so if I'm switching this, and you can see it didn't ruin anything I did on the taper, it didn't change anything, it's just all non-destructive. It's all, nothing set until I say apply, or until I say, hey, reset, oh, okay, or whatever. So I need to tell ZBrush that it's been doing it. So one thing I don't want is that I don't want it to taper like this from the top. So if I don't want it to taper like this, I can just mask, basically you have these cones over here, which is the opacity on the axis. So if I go over here and just push this down, it's now going to do the taper on every axis except for the z-axis, basically. So this is what I want, because I don't want the window to like curve in, right? So, so we have this, and now it's kind of looking weird. It's looking like, you know, I wanted this to taper just down. So now I can use another deformer, which is called the bent curve. I use this a lot as well. And now it reset the thingy. Doesn't matter. So
I love the bent curve.
Yes, the bent curve is amazing. So now I can just go over here and just drag this to the shape I want. Again, I'm going to crease this again. And actually, I'm going to go back and crease, and now I'm going to accept. So ZBrush remembers this form, basically. And now if I go and do the bend curve, it's not going to, hopefully, it's not, yeah, there you go. It's not going to reset my crease because it remembered that, right? Like you said previously. So now if I go over here and just push this down to the shape I want, and now I want to type in a live Boolean and just push this back, maybe scale it so it actually gives us a little bit of a hole there. Now I want to rotate, and you can see this, I can do this on the fly without sacrificing the topology of the sphere, the cleanliness of that. And you have to remember, the sphere is still low poly, so it's still just dynamic subdivision. Until I apply, I can't, well, I can sculpt on this, but it's not going to have a lot of detail. So this is like my non-destructive workflow for blocking out stuff. And you're probably wondering, like, okay, so should I mirror this? I don't mirror. That's non-destructible too, because I use a ReMesh for that. So a ReMesh has a bunch of features, which we're gonna go through them when we do the door. But right now, what I wanted to show you guys is basically what I do. If you go over here and turn on a ReMesh, and then you type in transpose, and the transpose, for some of the people that don't know, was the old way for to to move stuff and rotate, but it's still used for a lot of features. It's not like, oh, there's the gizmo now. It's not used anymore for anything else. So if I switch by pressing the Y to the transpose line, you see that yellow little dot over there? That's the center of my array, basically. So it's the pivot, let's say. I want this pivot to be in the center of the scene. So if I want that, I'm going to lock position. Oh, Jesus, come on. And then reset. There we go. There you go. So now it's in the center, and for some reason my sphere isn't in the center. I screwed up. No matter. I can go over here. I can go over here to the subtool, and there's another neat little thing in the gizmo. So if I go to go to Unmask Mesh Center, and then just press this home button, now it's in the center, right? So I can just push it up, and now I have to sort of bring that back. And here's the cool thing about this. Again, you have to work in the center. Well, you don't, but I prefer to work in the center. I could have also just duplicated this initial mesh and basically split it into a separate subtool, and it would inherit the pivot. So it would inherit the center of the pivot. It's not like you always have to work in the center of the world. I'm just OCD, so I prefer that. I prefer to work in the center of the world, but it's fine either way. You're always able to do stuff however you like in ZBrush. So I'm gonna go.
Wait until I get you on local dynamic symmetry.
Oh yeah, dynamic. Yeah. Oh wait, is there a thing for a ReMesh with that?
No. I'm not gonna derail you, but I just want to let you
I'm like, oh boy, new things, new features.
The Gizmo function now with local dynamic has been a game changer and stuff like that. So I'll show you some. I don't want to derail what you're doing, but play with it if you have it. That's all I'm going to encourage.
Yeah. Oh, I have played with it. I'm just wondering if there's something in the ReMesh that you
not that I've played with, but I'm going to play with it now actually, because you just gave me an idea, and that's currently where I'm at right now. I'm like, ooh, what if I tried this? So you keep going, and then if I have an answer, I'll come back.
All right.
That's all.
It's good to know that. It's good to know that I inspire ideas for.
Yeah. Sorry, not to derail. I'm just
it's fine.
You're now making me think of, could I do that? So I'm gonna go play.
Here's another cool thing that I want to show you guys. I do this all the time, and people just go, "What the heck did you just do? I didn't know you could do that." It's like one of the things I do. You see, like my gizmo is all wonky and it's not like aligned properly. This happens all the time, especially if you reset this little thing over here. So now it's no longer oriented to this mesh. What I usually do is, I don't know if you guys know, but if you press Alt, you can just move the gizmo. Press and hold Alt, of course, and then just move the gizmo around. One of the things I do when pressing and holding Alt is just tapping, because this is still low poly, so you can see here. I can just press and hold Alt and tap wherever, and it's going to move the gizmo wherever it is that you're tapping. But one other cool thing is that you can tap and hold and then just drag to orient the pivot to whatever other vertices you want. So if you want to orient this pivot from over here to over there, you can see it's snapping. So Alt and hold and then drag and hold. So basically it's snapping to that. So now we have the pivot oriented, like the Z axis is oriented perfectly to the front of this mesh again. So this is how you reorient your pivot. And now if you go to mask and mesh center, it's in the center and it's oriented, right? So now if I do this and then go back to my live Boolean, I get where I was back then before I screwed up on the center thing. So again, going back to our array mesh, if I go to array mesh over here and reset, again, the pivot is already, whoops, I pressed the wrong button over there. So you see the pivot is in the middle of the sphere, well, middle-ish. Let me turn off perspective. And then if I do basically mirror X, it's going to do a mirror. And this is not perfectly in the center, and I'm getting annoyed. So let me go over here to Shift P, and it should be. I think it's the sphere. It's the sphere that's not in the middle. So let me just go to the other one. I mean, you get the point anyway. So let's see.
Yeah. No, it looks good, man. And okay. So with dynamic local symmetry, if you wanted to array mesh something that you still need to work on symmetrically off on the side, you can add local symmetry dynamic to keep that object completely symmetrical in your sculpting the way you would like it, but you could still, but then you can apply a ReMesh on top of it, which is what I thought.
Yeah. That
so
is really
what you're doing now can be, so if you needed this eye to be perfectly symmetrical, so let's say you have a round eye and you want to sculpt and keep that truly symmetrical, then that's where dynamic local sim will come into play, and it'll still work with this array mesh technique, which is awesome.
Yeah. One other thing that you can think of is that use this technique to sort of snap your pivot to orient your symmetry with the dynamic, right? Dynamic symmetry. So you can use this to just press an alt and then just orient your pivot however you like. Maybe snap it to a particular corner on your models or whatever, and then use the symmetry with that, even to create, maybe not to sculpt symmetry, but to create some weird effect or whatever on your sculpting, which is also cool. All right, so basically this is how I made the pumpkin in terms of like big forms, big shapes, and I can do the same thing for, maybe I can use the same subtool, because this is my subtractive. I can't even rename this because so it's my sub 1. So this is my sub, and this is PM 3D gear 3D underscore 1, because I'm very, very organized. You know, so I can use the same subtool because it's subtracted to have another mesh over there, maybe not with the array, but I can have it over there just for the whole, right? So I can do control and drag to duplicate this mesh. And then I can go over here, as long as this one's masked and this one's unmasked, to switch this to maybe a cylinder 3D. And now this cylinder 3D, I want it facing the front. Like, let me go back to non-dynamic subdivision. So I'm going to place this right in the middle over there to make the opening for the door, right? Not that it's going to be seen, but just so you guys know, like, you can do this. And I'm going to use another deformer called the extender for this. So if I use the extender, basically what it's doing, it's in the name, it's extending. It's extending your mesh. and you can do a lot of crazy stuff with this. So you have a polygroup over there, which is good, because what I'm about to do next is important to have polygroups separated. And you can add subdivisions. Where is it? It's right here. So you have resolution for every axis. So you can do this, well, not in the cylinder, but you can. And you can do this to add more divisions over there. And then you can take it off creasing. You can have creasing. You can do whatever, like all sorts of shenanigans. So right now I have this, and I can scale it down. And now go down here, maybe have the door be like this tall, whatever. I usually have like a human body over here just for scale reference, but for this demo is whatever. And the cool thing about polygroups is that now I can control shift select this, and it's only selecting these polygroups. And now if I run polygroups auto groups, because they're separated, because again, like ZBrush selection is not really selection, it's more like hiding and showing stuff, right? So if you're hiding, technically it's disconnected. So if you do an auto groups, which basically groups everything that's connected via topology, if you go over here to polygroups, where's polygroups? I'm used to using my custom menu, man. So polygroups, auto groups, now they're a separate polygroup. So now I can go over here and just delete this one. Oh, there I go with my custom menu. So basically geometry modify topology delete hidden, it's over here. And this is like the mantra from watching Michael Pavlovich. You know, he's always going like geometry modify topology delete hidden. You already know it's like your commandments, you know, here. So you go over here, and then you can scale this up. Maybe I wanna run a close hole geometry modify topology. Where's the close holes? There it is, close holes. So now I'm closing that hole over there. And now if I do dynamic, let me apply a little crease over there. I have this. So now if I apply the live Boolean, this is what's happening. And let me just, and what I did right there, this is also cool. Like I just selected a little bit, and now I kept holding Control Shift and pressed A. So now it's going to select everything that's connected via topology. And I want this as its own polygroup. So Control W for that. And now this one, I can control tap because they have separate polygroups. Control tap is basically unmasking just this one that I tapped. Everything else gets masked. So now I can go over here and just move this to my liking. So I don't even need multiple subtools. But in this case, I'm probably going to have to split this because of the array mesh. So if I go back to the array mesh, you know, it's kind of, because it has two of them now, because it's mirroring on the same place. So if I want to split this, Control Shift tap this one, and then go over here to subtool and split hidden, but I'm gonna split the other way around. And now the other mesh, basically, it's right there. So without array, it's clipping perfectly of the hole. So now we have a hole. Very impressed and surprised Jack-o'-lantern. He's looking surprised over there. You know, it's really like, whoa, what is this? He's amazed with ZBrush right now. So yeah, so this is basically the pumpkin workflow. For the chimney that I did over here, I can show you like on the actual scenario. Oh, this isn't the one. Jesus. The naming. I mean, I'm very, very organized. This is like, there we go. So for the chimney over here, it's the same kind of workflow with the pumpkin, but the difference is that I used another deformer. That's the twist and then the bend curve. Again, to twist it around and have this kind of weird like spirally effect. But it's kind of the same workflow, right? So another cool thing about live Boolean is still within that subject in our little pumpkin. That's very tiny. Okay. That's super tiny. But whatever. We can make like smaller pumpkins just scattered around, whatever, with the IMM brush. So another cool thing about this is that since this is a hierarchical, Jesus, my English is kind of getting wonky. So this is hierarchical. So anything that I add on the bottom of this in terms of subtools is going to supersede whatever comes before it. So if I have an additive, which is this first little button over here, next, so if I go over here and say insert, let me do a cube 3D or whatever, just scale it down, scale it all the way down, make it tiny, even more tiny, like just go crazy. There we go.
Yeah, how small can you go?
Exactly. So how small can you go? So, and if I go over here, you can see like the live Boolean is not subtracting this because this is underneath all the other subtools that have a subtractive, there are subtractive subtools. So if I push this up over here, now it's subtractive. So it's subtracting whatever is on top of it, right? So it's a hierarchy thing. So now I don't want that. So I want to go over here and maybe do the window cross section thing. And I'm still going to just model one and then have symmetry, because here's the cool thing. If I use a ReMesh symmetry, especially, I learned this from Paul actually, for hard surface. If I want to have a leg that's exactly the same on the other side, and you want to have a symmetrical leg, but you want to have a symmetrical second leg, you know, you want that leg to be symmetrical within itself, and have another one, you want to use a ReMesh, because now you have local symmetry, and then you have a ReMesh symmetry. I'm guessing now with the dynamic symmetry, that's also been, well, not replaced, but it's a different method that you can use. But it's still useful to be able to see how it's going to look side by side instead of having to mirror and well, delete, mirror and well, delete, you know. So I use that all the time. Just use a ReMesh as sort of like a sculpting aid, let's say, and not as a, well, sometimes I do, like for a finished kind of product. Oh, I use everything. It's like, it's crazy.
Use it all the time.
Exactly. So I'm just going to make this fairly simple. So I'm going to use ZModeler for this. I'm going to actually go back to my little Gizmo. I love me some Gizmo. Just love me some Gizmo over here. So going to go like this, and maybe I don't want to add any default subdivisions. Let me just go over here. And now I'm going to use ZModeler for this. And here's the cool thing. I can have now symmetry, as I told you. So if I turn on local symmetry, turn off dynamic for now, but it's the same because the pivot is in the middle. So it's the same thing. I have, oh, I don't. Oh, Jesus. Do I? Huh. Do I have
do you want local sim on? Because you have it off right now.
Oh, right. There it is. Is it?
It's
I
on now.
So. Yeah, okay. So let me go QMesh just to check. Yeah, there we go. So, but it's not extruding properly. Okay, it's not. It's probably in the wrong axis because I'm dumb. There we go. Is it? It's in the X axis. So I can just turn on dynamic. Will that fix it? No.
Symmetry turned on?
Yes. Well, not now that you mention it. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, sometimes you just get a little crazy with the symmetry. It's confusing. But you know, so I could have done this to create this space for the window, or I could use polygroups with ZModeler. So if I alt paint on this side and then just tap, it's easier to see if I just push it back and turn off live Boolean. So if I alt and drag whatever. I'm painting polygroups and then let go of Alt and just tap, 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 tappa, tappa, tappa. There we go. And we have multiple polygroups over there. I could use that instead of the symmetry as well, but for this case, I'm just going to simplify things and do this the old-fashioned way, let's say, and just going to extrude this with QMesh. So QMesh is basically, as Ian put it on one of his streams, I can't remember which one was it. I think it was in IBC. I think it was like IBC stream. He said that QMesh was this extrude on steroids, basically, and that's it. That's the perfect definition of QMesh. You know, it's extrude but on steroids. So if I go over here and just push it a little bit and say, I want this to be longer, or maybe I want to add subdivisions, I could have just done this and just add subdivisions, or I could just do this to make it look kind of like a cube. Oh, Jesus, my eyes today. Not to work. Eyes not work today. So, and now if I tap it, it's going to repeat that extrusion over there. So now I can go and have like perfectly, well, not perfectly, but I have subdivisions already, and then just keep working like this. And also up here, but now I need to switch my symmetry to like the Y, right? So now if I tap this, there's a little window, right? So a cool thing about this, again, maybe I'm going to repeat this. Oh, Jesus, again, change the symmetry. There we go. Now the cool thing about this is pretty flat, right? So now, again, what am I going to use? Deformers, that's right. I knew you knew it. All right. So if I go back here and go back to my bend curve, let me some bend curve as well. Now I can bend this to my liking. So I can go over here and just do the curvature and try to match that curvature, right? To that pumpkin, right? So now I have this, and I can do the same like dynamic symmetry. I'm using D, which is a shortcut for dynamic symmetry, not dynamic symmetry, dynamic subdivisions, right? And Shift D basically toggles that off. So Shift D and D, right? Without subdivisions. If you have subdivisions already, it won't do that. D is to go up the subdivisions, and Shift D is to go down. So, and now I want to use the creasing to do that to make it, you know, sharper. And there you go. This is my non-destructive workflow. So if I now turn on a ReMesh and do that whole thing that I did with the subtractive, it still works. So again, lock position reset, Z mirror. It's not showing properly, but that's probably because of the live Boolean. It's a live Boolean like rendering thing. It's a rendering thing, but it's there. So you have to trust in. If I render, does it work? Let's see. Let's see if it's showing properly. If not, I can just apply it. It's done. Oh, it's not. It's a rendering thing. Yeah, it's a ReMesh with
give me a favor. Turn off local sim now. And back up. Undo the ReMesh that you did. Undo the mirror. Like back up a little bit. Back. Yeah. Okay. Now. Okay. Now try it again.
It's not. Yeah, but this is a rendering thing. It is still there. Yeah. Like if I apply. I'm just going to apply because this is just for the...
Yep, there it is. Yep.
So it's not purely symmetrical in nature, but that's because the pumpkin itself is not symmetrical. Like I just figured that out. It's not perfectly symmetrical. So it doesn't need to be, because I can just... Because you want some randomness to this, or, you know, good excuse. You know, you want randomness. So, you know, so let me go over here and do an auto groups again, because now these are actual geometry. So if I go to the polygroups, auto groups, and then just Control Tab, maybe... reverse this. Okay, there's some weirdness going on over there. Oh, I duplicated that. Maybe that was the reason. Okay. Did I? Should I apply this? If I apply this, it's... Let me reset the whole thing. All right, so lock position, reset, X mirror, and then apply this. There we go. Okay. So I was doing the array mesh twice. Okay. So is it working?
Sorry, actually, can you do me a favor? Back up on the array mesh, undo. For those of you who don't know, if you make mesh, you can undo your array mesh with your... Okay. And then so go back up and then do the mirror now. And then...
before turn off the array mesh?
No, right there. Just turn off your poly group. I just want to see the cut.
Okay.
And then mirror. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. If I make mesh, it's there. And if I do auto groups, and now I tap this, again, there it is. There's like two of them. There's two of them for some reason. I don't know why. Did it create this? Let me just do Control W, then apply this mesh. And if I do auto groups, there you go. There's 2 of them. This is weird. Doesn't matter. I can just delete.
Yeah, I'll look at it later.
Yeah. So just select and delete. Geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. Where is it? Modify topology, delete hidden. Oh, wow. Okay. Nope. Not going to happen. Let me see. Okay. Sometimes it just goes a little crazy. You have to redo the thing. Okay. And now if you do this, it has a polygroup. So now I can control tap and just move it back to where the window, where it makes sense for the window, right? So it's an asymmetrical house. Okay. You have to live in it. And it's asymmetrical. I wouldn't. But, you know, whatever. So, okay. So this is the pumpkin. The pumpkin house basic workflow is for this. Like for the terrain itself, I'm going to switch things up a little bit, go over the actual shape of the terrain. If I want to make an entire terrain in ZBrush, like usually when you work in real-time engines and stuff like that, you just do your terrain in a game engine or wherever you're going to render, right? Because it has a lot of other stuff connected to the materials that you can use. But for this case that I wanted to make like just a nice render inside a ZBrush, I just wanted to create a simple terrain here, like I did in the other scene. So for that, I usually just bring in a plane and then use ZBrush's surface noise together with some sculpting to create the base of my terrain. So let's do that. So there you go. So we have like a little plane over here. And now we can ideate on this and say, okay, maybe I want this plane. Maybe I want this plane actually. So I can switch the divisions on the fly. So I can go over here to the cones and say, okay, I want more divisions than this. Or I can do flat subdivisions. It's the same thing. I'm actually going to do that. So rotate this to 90 degrees, go over here to our divisions, turn off smooth, and then just divide a bunch of times. It could not divide for now because I'm still going to use just a few surface noise layers. But to use layers, you need divisions anyway. So that's mute. So, okay, so if I divide up to like 1,000,000, and then what I want to do is I want to delete lower because I'm going to use the knife brushes and the slice brushes actually to just get a chunk of this, right? And another thing, let me just check if this has UVs. If not, I might need to do that because I want to have, does this have UVs? Let's see, UV map. There you go. It doesn't have UVs. So let me go back to where I had the subdivisions, roll back to the first subdivision, and I'm just going to run a quick UV master on the Z plugin and just do an unwrap, and that's it. And now it has UVs. So now if I roll back to subdivision level 11, it has UVs. So if I morph this, where is it? If I morph this, it's going to show me the UVs, which is just a square, basically. Unmorph this, and it's there. So now what I want to do, I want to UVs because I want to bake that into a texture, bake the poly paint into a texture. So that's the reasoning. And if I want to, let's say a path over here, maybe I want to push this up to the front, Control Shift, and go over our select/clipping curve brushes. And I'm not sure, I don't think I tried this, but let's try the knife curve. I don't think I tried. I think it's because it's hollow. It doesn't work like it should. Yeah, okay, first division levels. I forgot about deleting the division levels. So delete lower, delete all your division levels. Yeah, it doesn't work. Okay, so it can't, the knife brush doesn't work with hollow meshes, and this is technically hollow. It's a plane. So what I did was I actually used the slice curve brush. And the slice curve brush, not only will it give you a perfect edge loop around that area, but it's going to create a poly group as well, which is great for selecting, right? So if I want to have some crazy, let's say, maybe I want this to go over here. All you have to do is have your slice start in a different polygroup or in an empty area. And then as it goes in, and if it goes to another polygroup or an empty area, it's going to create that polygroup over there. Let me turn off the lines so you guys can see. So I want to do maybe something like this, maybe like this, and maybe like this, and maybe just cut it off right there. And maybe now I want to go like that, and like that. It's going to give me another polygroup. Okay, so now if I Control Shift tap this one, this is my terrain, right? This is the base of my terrain. And it has UVs, I think. Let me check. But I think it has UVs because this is the method I used. So if I delete hidden and go over here, there it is. It has UVs. So I can easily just apply maybe some textures you get out of, you know, textures.com or whatever. Or you can use the newly announced, but they're still not there, you know, Cinema 4D noises.
Yeah,
that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, those will be coming. Those will be coming, and they'll be fun.
Real quick. Coming.
Yeah, real quick. I need to bounce. So I'm going to leave you guys in good hands with Rodolfo and Dustin. Dustin, Rodolfo, just wanted to say this is awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, I have some meetings I have to attend.
Okay. Sounds fun. Enjoy.
All right, everyone. Have fun.
All right. Bye, Ian.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya. All right. So as I was saying, basically, this is the main workflow for the terrain. And now if I look at the lines, that's kind of crazy. But it has an edge loop right over there. And that's the important part. So now what I want to do over here, I did that in a lower poly, actually. So I want to go over to surface noise. I have all these things open. By the way, if you guys didn't know, if you shift press one of these tabs, it doesn't close any other tab. So I see people just going tapping and it closes everything, just keeps that one open. If you shift tap that, it doesn't. So if I add some noise.
You know how many times I've just clicked and auto collapse things and
yeah. That used to happen to me a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, that was a little trick that's just saved me a lot of frustration because I used to do that too. So now I just add some noise. I'm just going to show you guys real quick what I did. So basically, I just tweak this curve and surface noise. People that are familiar with surface noise, you know, it's kind of a procedural noise kind of thing, but you can add textures to this like an alpha. And for that, it's not in this case because it's a plane. But for example, for the pumpkin, it's useful to have UVs because it's going to wrap around the object properly. It's not just a projection. So if I go over here to the strength, maybe I want something like this. Maybe I don't want this completely flat. And I want the noise scale like that. And now the cool thing about this is that I have some base for my terrain. And I know that these dips are probably not going to be that grassy. It's going to be like dirt or whatever, right? So if I want this to be dirt and I want this to be grass, I can split them by polypaint already. So if I apply this, you can see it's going to deform the actual terrain. But here's a cool thing. If I turn on the noise and then say mask by noise, here's what it's doing. It's masking just the areas of the noise. So it's a black mask on the mask is in the black. So the black areas are the actual deformations in the mesh, and the places that it's unmasked, it's basically the greenery that we want. So now we can do something like this. For example, we can go over here and do a little bit of some color management. Let's say I want to have a green area over there and just apply polypaint to what oh, it's actually the other way around. Jesus. I'm dyslexic. I'm sorry. So here we go. This is going to be our it's the other way around. Jeez. Yeah, there you go. To prove my point. So this is going to be the basically the dirt kind of where there's not going to be any fiber meshes. We're going to building a bridge here between this feature and FiberMesh, because FiberMesh also uses the masking features to generate the fibers, right? So, and now the second color I want to have is something like that's a little green, but maybe not that green. And I want to apply the color to that. Oops, need to switch the mask and apply this color to that. Maybe not that green. Maybe something like that. There we go. That's okay. And the cool thing now is that if I have this mask over here, and let me just turn off polypaint temporarily so you can see what's going on, because it's really hard to see with the polypaint. And let me go back to like a white color. You can see the mask over there. If I just control tap over here, it's going to blur. Control alt tap is going to sharpen that mask. And that's what I want, because I don't want this. I want the grass to be there. I don't want it to bleed that much into the dirt areas. And now going back to FiberMesh, going to FiberMesh, the first time I'm going to FiberMesh in this stream, I can use this to just preview a bunch of fibers, and they're only spawning on the areas they're unmasked. They're masked actually. You can't really notice it because it has a lot of fibers. But if I turn this down, the max fiber setting, you can see it's only spawning over there. And I can still tweak this. I can paint a few patches with a mask, basically a mask brush. Just go over here, change the alpha to something like this. Maybe add in the stroke, add some color spray to that, and just maybe just tap in a few areas like that to have some like uncovered patches of grass. And I'll just sharpen it up a little bit. Maybe do this with a tinier brush like that. Have some patches over there. And now if I turn on preview, you can see it's not generating the patches over there. So now I built one of these. This is like we're already like over the time that we're supposed to.
It's all good.
It's crazy, man. I had so many more things to show. It's so yeah. Well, next week we're still gonna go through like IMMs and stuff like that. But the cool thing about this is that I built the presets, which is a time saver. So I built some presets for this session. Particularly, I built some fibers. So if I turn on, you can see basically what I did is I tweaked these settings to make this look like kind of like stylized weird foliage. It still has, where's the profile over there? Yeah, so it's actually thick. It's not like a card or anything. It's actually geometry. It's actually preferable for rendering and stuff like that, but could easily just use cards and then bring this into like a game engine or something and just have your foliage cards over there. So, and also has UVs, so you can actually have like an atlas with a leaf or something, or maybe a grass patch, and just bring it here and bring your texture in, and it's actually going to use that as a card in grass patches. I just wanted to have an actual geometry here, but this, as you can see, if I'm rotating around, it's disappearing and reappearing. That's because it's not actual geometry. It's still a fiber, a preview. So to do that, I need to accept this. And the thing is, you can change the color, change whatever. I mean, it's endless. Like FiberMesh has a bunch of different things. I learned how to do trees with FiberMesh, like actual from the trunk and branches, everything with FiberMesh, which is crazy. So let me just not create a fast preview mode. And now it's a separate subtool, right? But here's the cool thing. Let's say oh, this is too tall now. What do I do? It's already set as a separate subtool. FiberMesh has its own masking features. So if you go over down here to masking, where's masking? Oh, so many menus open. It's masking. So if I go to mask by fibers, I don't know if you can see this, but let me turn off polypaint real quick so you guys can see this. If I go to mask by fibers and just fiber mask, it's going to create a mask that's a gradient from the root of each fiber to the tip, regardless of their scale. So if you had like a scale variation in your fiber mesh, it would still unmask the tip and mask the bottom, which is perfect if you want to change the overall scale of your fibers like this, you know? So, or just do this and then just scale it down and do this, like going in and actually modeling the height of your fibers, right? So this is what I used for the overall grass patches and all of that for that scene you saw over there on the other section. Jesus, the naming. Gee, I'm just all over the place with this naming. Yeah. So I use that and a couple of other ones, and I'm going to show you guys the fully polypainted version with the textures, because some of them are actual textures. So I'm going to go down here to the texture tab. I'm going to select an object that I know has textures. These ones that are gray are the ones that I sent to Substance and did some Substance Painter texture work. I also created some art material so we don't waste time like I've been wasting today. You know, so to speed things up a little bit. But basically these textures are coming in from Substance Painter, right? And since this is ZBrush, I actually exported all of them, like the normal maps, everything. But in this case, I'm only using the color. Could also use ambient occlusion and stuff like that, but not needed for this case. And here's a cool thing. If I want to turn on the texture for everything, you'd be like, oh my God, now I have to turn on for every single subtool hand by hand. And it's not necessary because there's a new feature here down in the subtool palette, subpalette, that says apply last action to all subtools. So if I turned on the texture, that's an action. You press the texture on button. If I click this and press OK, it's going to apply textures to everything. Every texture that it had selected, it's going to turn on. So it's kind of like just pressing this little icon with the shift key to hold. If you hold the shift key and turn it on and off, it's kind of like the same thing, but it's not as fast because it's 2 buttons. But, you know, I'm all about just quickly pressing a button to do everything. So maybe that's because I'm kind of an Unreal Engine kind of person. I want to do procedural stuff as well. I like to do that. So when I'm in ZBrush, I'm like always trying to find ways to do stuff quicker and more procedurally, even though I can still sculpt and do it by hand. I mean, are there any questions? I'm just wondering if I've been just talking for an hour, just going on and on, just going over features and stuff. I'm just wondering, are there any questions from the chat that came in?
I'm taking a look. I don't think there are many. I see that Alex asked, what's the target engine for this demo? We'll be taking it into Cinema 4D and Redshift in week 3 and 4.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the whole reason I did an entire environment in ZBrush, because especially if you've seen my ZBrush live streams, I usually do, again, the models in ZBrush and maybe some composition just to check how it looks, but it usually has a different output, like something like Unreal Engine, you know, or Marmoset or whatever, to do like game art, basically video games, right? In this case, it's not like a real-time engine. I just built the entire scene and then just sent it off to Dustin to do the rendering in Redshift. So yeah, so that is basically the gist of it. I didn't do the framing over here, but the framing, I don't know, we're over our time, right? It's like I could just keep going. Just tell me I can keep going. I just go over.
I mean, we could definitely keep going. I mean, is that something that we can get into next week? Maybe start with that, and kind of work that into the session next week. If not, then we can take 10 minutes or so and go into.
Yeah, so I can just give you a tease of what we can go over next week, and it's basically going to be all surrounding IMM curve brushes and IMM brushes and modularity and all of that stuff. So week 2 is going to be all about IMMs and how to use that to populate your scene. Because here's the thing, this looks nice, but without the IMMs, this would have looked very similar to what it looks like over here on our little scene, right? It's just the pumpkin thing and just a flat terrain, maybe with the border over there, and that's it. There's not a lot to it. There's no tombstones, no skulls, no whatever. And the reason I don't sculpt all of that by hand, because if I know it's going to be repeated, I might as well just create my own brush with all of the assets that I want and then just plonk them in the scene. And if I want to make some slight variations, I can do that after the fact, which is a lot faster than just sculpting everything by hand one by one. It's going to take you like 10 times longer. Right, so the tease is this. Basically, there's a tool here that I have with all my IMM subtools, and basically everything that you see that's either a fence or a cobblestone, or where are the skulls? The skulls. Oh, the skulls are a separate one because it's 2 IMMs. So the skull over here that you see that's scattered around the final scene that you saw before, you just don't notice because it's small. Right, so if you do close-up renders and stuff like that, then you can see that it actually has some detail. You can sculpt your skull entirely like this as a single mesh, a single model, and then just create an IMM brush that is right over here. I created the preset. Let me just load the brush real quick. IMM environment. I'm actually going to do the environment. Yeah, the environment's a curve brush. So this has the fences, the slab, the 2 slabs, and then the cobblestone, which is basically the same 2, but in an interesting pattern that's kind of tileable. And what this does is basically this. You can just go over here and start drawing your curve. And now you'll have to, oh, Jesus, it's too small. So there you go. So now you have slabs. Of course, they're kind of floating in the air and looking weird. but you can drag your paths wherever you want, and you have slabs and cobbles, like a cobblestone path immediately traced for you, which is incredible, and it's much easier than just doing it all by hand, right? So this is kind of my game environment art brain, thinking of ways to reuse assets to populate an entire scene without it looking too repeatable, you know? So now after this, after I make the mesh, I can just tweak it, and I'll show you guys that next week. Same thing for the fence. If I just switch this, whoops, if I just tap this, now there's a fence. And there's some settings that we can go over next week. I don't have time for that today, because it's already over like 15 minutes over the time. But there's some settings in the IMM that would allow you to actually stretch these planks to connect to the other one, clip them through as well, so it seamlessly transitions from one to the other, which is really cool. And for the skull and candle, they're just regular IMM brushes like this one over here, that you can just, there's the skull, there's the tombstones, they all have textures and UVs. As you can see here, it's just the wrong texture that's applied, but it's still there. So if I just drag this, now I'm dragging in the tombstone, because you gotta take into account that this inherits the texture and the UVs of the subtool that you're dragging it onto. So if you're dragging this and you want to have another texture, you have to split it into a separate subtool and apply a texture. So that's the things I'll be showing you guys next week. And I hope you guys tune in. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I mean, I haven't shut up since the beginning of the stream. I have this problem. When I'm in ZBrush, it's just, you know, like a machine gun just going over D-Day mode, you know? It's like crazy.
No, it's great. It's great.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm done for this stream. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to help. I have a Discord server. This is shameless plug. Come on, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I have a Discord server, and people just pop in with questions, and you can also just submit a ticket, and either Ian or Paul or Louis or anyone from the ZBrush team can answer your questions. Anything that I've shown, I'm pretty sure they know. So it's like, you know, if you have a particular question in any of this like workflows that I showed today, just ask away, either by submitting a ticket or via my own Discord if it's a particular question on this environment.
So what's the what's the link to your Discord?
Where can I pop that in? I mean, I'm used to using OBS, not this. So let me just bring in a link for my Discord. Where can I paste this onto?
We can put it in the private chat, and I think Kyle can.
Oh, okay, okay. I'll just post this on.
He's the magician.
Yeah. Is the Gandalf behind the scenes, you know, making all the fireworks go crazy. There we go. I just did that. So that's the Discord. A lot of people just been asking questions. It doesn't need to be environment art. There are a lot of character artists there. That a lot of the questions that came in from my last stream were character artists actually that made those questions, and I just made an entire 2-hour section of the stream just dedicated to IMM brushes. So you can see how dense that can go. You can just go for 4 hours just exploring a simple feature.
So we do have a question from Mohammed here. Do the skulls and the candle have textures applied to them, or how did you manage to get this coloring?
Yeah, so
they do have texture, correct?
Yeah, this was Substance Painter, basically. So I'm mixing in the final render. If I do a quick little render, let me just go over here. It's BPR, so it's pretty fast. So if I go over here, let me switch the brush, because this brush kind of covers. And if I do a render, it's going to showcase the texture, but there's like some cool effects over here. If you look at the thumbnail just on its own, it's the texturing from Substance. There's some material work in ZBrush, like with wax modifiers to give it like a fake subsurface scattering effect, especially in the candle. But the texture itself, if I turn off the texture, it's actually coming in from Substance. So let me just go back to this tool, turn this off, and you can see what's going on. Like the material, it's just the orb clay or the basic material with some tweaks to make it like more subsurface scattery. I don't know if that's a word.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it works.
It works. So yeah, it's a mix of both things. So a little bit of poly paint just to preview, but then I go to Substance to get the fine. It gives you more flexibility and a lot more options when it comes to do layering stuff and do like maybe some edge work, you know, like using curvature maps and stuff like that. So I did bake this. that's one of the things I'm going to showcase maybe in the beginning of week 3, like my whole ZBrush to substance workflow, which is a quick way for you guys to create your own very quick low poly models for IMMs. Because sometimes if you do this, have an IMM brush, an IMM mesh that has like 2 million polygons, and you want to populate the entire scene with that, that's going to drag your poly count up a lot. So you want to use Decimation Master, but you don't want to lose your poly paint or whatever you did for texturing. So you want to keep UVs, keep poly paints, and you want to have the look of it having a lot of detail, right? So you want to use maybe something like Substance to bake all of that detail, and then use that texture in ZBrush to give the illusion of detail, right? These meshes are like, I don't know, like 50K in polygon. Yeah, this is 100K, which is, it's a lot for games, you know, but for ZBrush, that's kind of nothing. But
right.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I was done.
Let's see. We have, all right. So the three final questions. So we'll stop there for today, because I know we could go on.
Just keep going. Yeah.
So Alex is asking, will you reduce the final or will you reduce the poly count in the final export 100%? It's going to be decimated. I feel like I would have a house fire. My computer would explode and start.
Yeah, I mean this candle is already low for ZBrush terms, you know, because again, ZBrush works differently when it comes to poly count than other DCC apps, and this is for any DCC app actually. ZBrush is just unique. It's like the weird child in the corner, you know, like but that drags all the attention because he's awesome. So you know, kind of a ZBrush fan if you haven't noticed.
So next question, is there a way to use more than 2 materials in multiple subtools?
Yes, there is. Yeah, definitely. So there's a way to do multiple materials, 1 per subtool, and multiple per subtool. Because again, in any brush, let me just bring in a sphere real quick, just to showcase this really not take too long. So I just make PolyMesh 3D and create this sphere right over here. Doesn't need to be perfect, just like this. Apply dynamics and delete lower, and now Dynamesh. Oh, not even Dynamesh. I can just divide this up, right? So any brush that you're using has these little buttons over here. I don't know if they're in the same place because I changed my UI a little bit, but there's always like an RGB, an M, and then Z add, Z sub, right? Or M RGB. What this means is that Z add is basically adding, so it's an additive stroke, right? You're sculpting out. And Z sub is essentially like Alt key, right? So if you're pressing Alt, it's an alternate thing. But if you tap in M, what you're doing, so let's just apply this material, right? If I have M on, and I go to color and I fill this object, it has that material now embedded into its polypaint. It has that material information, right? So if I switch my material to something like jelly bean or whatever, you can see it's not changing anymore because it has like a baked in material, right? So you can actually, with the M button turned on, this brush now can paint that material. So if I turn off Z add, I'm essentially just painting the material. So I can just go over here and start painting the material. So you can actually have something like a mask or whatever. Whoops, maybe not this mask, but a mask like this, and then invert this and go to color and fill the object. And now that whole section is a separate material. So you have 2 materials in one subtool, and you can have multiple materials per subtool. So yeah, that's the thing.
Sweet. So the last question is how to preview the textures in ZBrush after doing it in Substance. So that's just uploading the textures into the texture slot for that subtool, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, after you bake, you do your texture in Substance, you do and export those textures like you would for any other software, right? And then in ZBrush, you have to bring those in either here under the texture tab, just tap this and then go import, or go down to the texture map per subtool. This is per subtool. And just click here and it's the same thing. You have import right there. But I think this one it's a per subtool thing. So it doesn't really, I don't think it imports to the overall project. What I usually do is just go here and do import and just import all the textures I want for the entire duration of that of that session, and then apply them over here. So then I go over here, and the textures will all show up over here, and just tap whatever. This doesn't have UVs, so you need to have UVs, right, for the texture. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward. But again, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth once we do the whole like ZBrush to substance kind of workflow. So that's going to be fun, you know, because I love substance too. Big substance fan.
Yeah. So Casey's saying make sure flip V is on when you import it. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That's the thing. Yeah. UV space it's flipped vertically in ZBrush. I did a stream a couple of weeks ago. No, this was way before the summit, actually. It was like a month ago or something. That was about like importing displacement maps from the ZBrush the substance bake to use them to displace different meshes, just as basic form in ZBrush, and then displace them with the tile level textures and whatever. And you have to have that middleman that's either Photoshop or whatever you're using to flip vertically the textures coming in from substance. In Designer, there's a way to do that. If you're using Designer, right before the output, you can do a transform, and then just output a version that's flipped and a version that's not flipped. So there's a way in Designer to do that without having to do it by hand every time you do some texturing work. So yeah, but Designer is just a magician's briefcase, basically. So it's Designer. So yeah. Any other questions?
No, I think that's it. We only went 25 minutes over today. It's not that bad.
Really? I thought it would have to cut off at like 6 in Portugal. I'm in Portugal, so it's like 6 p.m. So I didn't know, but you know, because otherwise I would just kept going forever.
Yeah, it's tough. We've had some long streams, so everybody here is quite used to going overtime. So it's it's not a big deal at all. But I think
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just saw a question. I think it's kind of useful for people to know. I think Akash Sarkar. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, my man. But he's asking if he wants to learn Substance Painter and doesn't know UV unwrapping. If I can please teach. That's going to be covered in the ZBrush to Substance workflow section. So you have to stay tuned. So this is kind of a plug. Stay tuned to the Demystifying post-production series, you know.
Week 3, right? Week 3 is it? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to try to model from scratch and sculpt and UV and retopo and bake and texture and bring it back into ZBrush in under 30 minutes. So stay tuned for that challenge. That's going to be fun. Sweating all over the camera.
That'll be good. I'll sit there with my jaw on the desk, and then all of a sudden I'll have to start teaching whatever I'm teaching at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna try. I can't make promises, but it's gonna be a nice challenge to do that on stream, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I think that is it. That's a wrap for today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. This was awesome.
A good stream.
Yeah, you can see it's already evening, so it's like perfect description of my relationship with ZBrush. You start in the morning, and then it's daylight, and then suddenly it's in the evening, and you're still going.
Yeah, I feel like in my space it's evening all the time. It's a black room. So,
oh, okay. Yeah, I have the window right there. So yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
Right,
I hope you guys enjoyed it. I mean, I hope everyone enjoyed this. I just went on a rant for stream, a good rant, you know, not negative at all, but
yeah, there's a lot of good tips in there today. A lot of stuff that we can pull from it. So that's awesome. I had my mind blown a couple times.
Really?
Yeah, I was like,
cool.
and it was honestly, it was the small stuff. It was just, you know, like shift clicking the tab.
Yeah. It's usually those things, right? Yeah.
Like I'm sitting here, you know how many times it's like open tab, open tab, open tab.
But that's the thing. Those things are so small that it's not like a lot of people are making tutorials for those smaller things. It's not like you're going to make a tutorial for a click, you know, like a 10-second tutorial. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, except if you're Michael Pavlovich. That guy just does tutorial for everything. So except him, you know, everyone else is just, it's hard to find that because it's a very niche kind of small detail information. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's it for
Cool.
today. I guess we can end the stream and look forward to next week
Yes.
for the rest of the month. Really, it's going to be a good one. So
Yeah.
thanks
Halloween.
a lot for tuning in, and see you next week, everyone.
See ya. Thank you.